Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are watching from today. Welcome to this webinar, which is brought to you by Front and the CX Network. We're going to be talking about why you should take your customer support metrics public. Kenji, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Awesome. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for attending and for checking out this recording if you're watching it afterwards. I'm going to be talking about why CX and support specifically in my case can and should be a competitive advantage. So this is a case study using my own team, my own company that I work at. So these are real results. And hopefully by the end, I will have convinced at least a few of you to consider taking your support metrics public. I know it's really scary, but I'm going to walk you through it. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Front so you have the context of where I work and the kind of product that I'm supporting. Front's the AI-powered customer service platform built for collaboration. So I've worked here for 6 years plus, going on 7. We've got over 9,000 customers today and a relatively small support team, less than 30 supporting them using Front and the collaboration tools. So check us out if you have not yet. Highly recommend it. All right. I'm going to get a little interactive. So we're going to share a poll right now. And my question to you is, have you ever heard that customer support or customer service is a cost center? All right, let's give it a few more seconds. And we'll feel free to close the poll whenever we're ready. Awesome. Yes, so resounding yes, 93% of you have heard this before. This really pains me. Just some background on me personally. I've worked in support for 12 years now. My first job was in a call center. So I've done everything from phone support to email to ticketing, like you name it. I've had a role to up until where I am today. So, I've heard this before, especially early in my career. I think the narrative is changing. And this is a big reason why I wanted to do something like this. How could I create more transparent value for my team to help break the stigma of support as a cost center? So that's really the goal. And that's the theme you've heard a lot in the last year in CX is how do we move from cost center to value creator? And I hope that these transparent metrics can help with that. So just a quick reminder, I know some of this is just information you might already know, but I think it's a good refresher. For me personally, these are board level metrics. So when I'm talking to the board, to the CEO of my company, I'm talking about things like NRR, RPR, LTV, the churn rate, the expansion rate. And when I'm talking to, my fellow CX teams, success, support, operations, we're focused on the customer data, the NPS, the CSAT, maybe CES, FCR, a lot of acronyms, I know. And then you got the other value drivers, which are up and comers. So you're going to start to hear a lot more about voice of the customer programs. That's something that's existed for a long time. But I think with the advancement of AI, it's going to become more accessible. So you're going to see a lot more support teams owning that function. And then last but not least, definitely product roadmap influence. We are sitting on a ton of customer data, which can help drive any product's change. So definitely want to make sure we highlight that. Okay, if I haven't scared you off yet, so why should you take your support metrics public? Why should you even think about it? It's a really scary thing to do, and I think that's why you should do it. Often the hardest thing to do is the thing you know will give you the best outcome. That's a big reason why I did it. So when in 2022, I saw this viral tweet by Rippling CEO Parker Conrad, and it was just such a crazy idea. I'd never thought about this, but he was the first one that I had seen that had really said, we're going to make our metrics public. So similar to how every company has a status page, showing your downtime, your incidents, et cetera. He actually made his support metrics public and he did a call to arms. The sad thing is it kind of fell flat. So a lot of us thought it was a cool idea. I was like, that's awesome. I would love to do it. But there really wasn't a how to do it. So, the friction of taking it from an idea to actually doing it was enough to deter most people. It deterred me. So from reading this post, I think it took me about 6 months to resurface the conversation with my team. And I'm happy to share that we actually have a published support report today. So if you want to scan this QR code or if you go and Google Front Support Report, you will find it. Our metrics are completely 100% public. They are live streaming directly from our analytics. They're not going to be perfect depending on the day, and that's okay. That's the whole point, is to be transparent and to build trust with customers and to really show the value of your support teams and to find new ways to highlight them. So please check this out. If you have a chance, I would love to get your feedback, especially in the Q&A. If you're looking at it now and you want to talk about it and have questions about why I chose what, please bring those up. Okay, so how did we actually get there? How did we get from reading a tweet to having a published page that's live and doing all these really cool things? It took a lot. So it was a year's worth of work. It involved over 30 members cross-functionally. So if I include my own support team and then all the folks that I worked with, whether it's from success, operations, marketing, data, and engineering to build it and to actually launch it, it was a lot of work and it was a lot of collaboration. Points of friction. So like I mentioned, the friction was there was no blueprint to do this. So this is a lot of me information gathering, talking to these cross-functional leaders. And I think the biggest point of friction was, how do we balance the transparency with data privacy? Like, what is good transparency? What is bad transparency? What are the metrics we should actually show? What do customers want to read? What would they get value out of? What would, scare my team off? So these were a lot of discussions that I had to have even before thinking about really doing this. So the timeline, like I mentioned, it was about a year, from start to finish, from reading, about this idea, bringing it up, kind of forgetting about it, and then bringing it up to my CEO 6 months later, and then looping in marketing, looping in the product team, and then really making it a company-wide initiative, because that's the only way it's going to happen. Is you can be a support team and you can share your metrics, but what's the point if you can't advertise this and share this with the most customers possible? So, my timeline was a year. I would say, me giving the blueprint out, you could do this in weeks, honestly. I'm a little jealous. So you could probably do what I just did in a year in weeks to a month max if you really, really wanted to. So here's why we did it. Um, it's the holidays, you're shopping for gifts, Black Friday, Christmas. We're all customers, whether you work in support or success or CX, like in some part of your life, you're a customer, and try to think about the trust you're trying to get about a product or service that you're buying. Like if I'm buying something off of Amazon, I might go read Reddit articles or, reviews. And so this was one way that I thought of, like, how can I build more trust with customers? Because I truly believe my team is one of the best support teams on the planet. I say that internally, but how can I actually make that proof and valuable for people who have never heard about Front and might be looking at it as an option? So by making the metrics transparent, it builds trust in that, hey, these are 100% real. They are live streamed. They're not going to be perfect, but you know what you're getting into. You know what you're buying. We have better service out there than anybody else. The other thing is, it also triggers this movement of accountability and continuous improvement. So think about it, you just turning it on is not just turning it on. It is a commitment that this lives. This is going to be on forever, hopefully. Um, and you have to live with that, whether it's the wins and losses. So I think you as a leader have to be comfortable to be uncomfortable for a little bit of the time. And if it's okay, if it's not perfect, what better forcing function than to have it living out in the world to motivate us to improve that. So that's what I found. And again, like I touched on earlier, it is really a company-wide alignment on CX. So if you feel like you're in a silo, if you feel like CX is on the bottom of the totem pole, this is a great initiative. Like initiatives like this that will take the entire company's buy-in will make you really build relationships that you should be building, but maybe you don't have a starting point. So this is, again, because it's a company-wide alignment, your company is going to care about it. Like they may not care about your metrics as much as you do today, but if it helps the company to grow, that's the best outcome. And then last but not least, competitive advantage. So, when you think about service as a differentiator, you can think about like the Ritz-Carlton or like certain airlines. Like there are ways to compete on service. The same goes for anything, for product support, for products that you're buying. For us, we found this is absolutely a competitive advantage. When customers look at, competitor Z and I in the support space, they don't have transparent metrics, but Front does. And so that's a leg up that we can give our sales team and our go-to-market team to say, like, here's our service. We're putting our money where our mouth is, and this is what you're going to get. So if you really care about great support and great product support, you should choose us. So it's absolutely become a competitive advantage. Okay, I talked a lot about why I made my metrics public and why I wanted to. So why should you think about making your metrics public? The best advice I can give you is there is no perfect time. So learn from my mistakes. Do not wait 6 months and sit on this idea. Like, if you really think that you would consider making your metrics public, I'm happy to talk to you after this. Like, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I want to help as many people as possible because I think it's such a great thing for teams to do. So there's no perfect time. Like, right now is the best time ever to think about this. And again, it's just a commitment that you're making to your team, to your customers, and the company, and it's a great thing to do. And you will become a growth evangelist whether you like it or not. And I think that in this stage, in the next, especially in the next year or two, with everything going on in the support and CX world, we have to become growth evangelists. We have to become more integrated with the company, with revenue driving, with value creation, with the customer experience. And I think that initiatives like this will really help you. So if you don't have one today, think about it. I think it could be something that your leadership team may really be interested in. And I'm not here to preach what are the best metrics. Like I said, I spent a lot of time thinking about which ones were. If you check out my live link that I had shared out, you'll see what the metrics that I chose. I'm a SaaS tech product support team, so I'm going to choose the metrics that reflect my team's work and what customers care about. My customers care about fast, high quality responses, and that's what you'll see showcased. For you, it might be different. If you're in a different industry, could be travel, could be, freight. Like, think about the metrics that your customers care about. So there's no one size fits all, but I bet your top three or five off the top. Like, if I asked you to write it down, you could probably figure out what those are and then validate them. Talk to your support team, obviously, first. That's what I want to mention is you have to get your team behind this. This is not something you do alone. It's not something you do without your team's knowledge. Share How comfortable would you be if we shared these three metrics, with our customers? How would you feel about that? And then take that feedback and iterate, and then go to your leadership team and ask them what are the metrics they want to see? What would help them close deals? And I think that after doing that, you'll have a really good idea of that set. So again, there's no perfect time. You probably know what they are. But if you're not sure and you're just looking for an example, check out my metrics. They're working great for us, and then you can tweak them over time. And then this is probably the biggest game changer through this all. So operationalize through technology. When I first started on this path to making the metrics public, there was literally nothing built. Like, there was this great announcement, but there was no blog about how do you do it. Like, the how was missing. And so I didn't want folks to go through the same pain and struggle that I went through. So what I did is I made sure that I shared all my feedback with my product and engineering team. And we actually built this feature so that we can not only launch it for ourselves, but for all of our customers. So if you're a front customer today, you can actually do this in 3 clicks versus me taking 6 months plus. So I'm really jealous, actually. All right, what did we learn from all of this? So I've made my metrics public. It's been over a year now. How are things going? They're going amazing. We're getting the best feedback possible. It's in a live state where it's just, anybody in the company can read it, customers can read it. And it's just been such an uplifting thing for our team. It was, I'm not gonna lie, it was really scary at first. People were like, "What are you doing to us? This is a terrible idea." So the change management piece is really important, like I talked about, but the outcomes have been great. Like, again, there's no perfect time. You should really think about it. And then on the other side, when I think about the other reason we did this for our customers. We did this to highlight how great our CX team is, but there are real results that come out of this. So you can see Jacob from the marketing team posting this here. You can see Joe, one of our sales reps, showing that he actually used this transparent support report to help close a deal. And I've seen more stories like this. And since making this a feature available for folks, we've actually had folks like Goodbill, Coastal Region Health Center, Trainwell, Story Care all launch. So we've seen this kind of momentum building, and that is so cool for me to see. I mean, for me being one of maybe two or three, and now to have so many other folks that I can talk to about our metrics and kind of figuring out how to do this even better. And so if you're really considering publishing your own support report, again, if you're a front customer, you can do it in minutes. But if you're using any other thing, I'll give you some high level, just key takeaways. So we talked about, pick your metrics. You probably know what they are, but just validate them. Don't do more than five. You want to make it a snapshot so that a customer can go to this page and just quickly get an understanding of what's the value you're going to bring. Why are you better than other support teams or CX teams versus my competitor? Obviously, work with your marketing team. You don't need to know your hex codes by heart, but style to match your brand. And then the last thing is work with marketing, publish, promote. The whole reason we're doing this is to get this in front of as many people as possible. So don't work in a silo, become your best friends with marketing. I love them. And we were able to put this really cool thing together that I'm really proud of. And that's it. I sped through it. And so hopefully we have plenty of time for questions because I would love to cover as many as possible.
Thank you so much, Kenji. That was super interesting to hear about your journey with sharing your metrics. And we do indeed have some audience questions. So I'd like to start with a question that we had in the chat from Andre, which was, does having your metrics live help with sales or renewals?
Yes, absolutely. It helps with so far we've seen it with sales. So for new sales and prospecting, one of the things that I would recommend is, since you're going to be hosting these metrics on your company's site or some kind of website, right? It's got to be hosted. You can actually track this in Google Analytics and see how many of these customers viewed the page and then went to start a trial or eventually close a deal. So we've been actually able to put dollars to the amount so far of how much we're generating. So I think it hasn't been long enough for us to see the renewal data yet, but definitely for new sales prospecting, it's been a valuable tool.
Thank you. That's really interesting to hear. And thank you, Andre, for the question. Just to remind everyone, the chat is active and so is the Q&A box. Excuse me, got a bit of a sore throat. But anyway, moving on to the next question. Do customers actually reference and comment on seeing the public metrics? I'm thinking some of the benefits might be internal accountability.
Yeah, they do. That's the important thing, is to make sure this is where the good transparency is. If you're going to be sharing metrics, make sure they're true and make sure that there's no disparity of what the customer is feeling versus what they're seeing on your page. Because that's when the conversations will happen of like, oh my gosh, you guys are saying you're responding in X, but when I go to your report, it says Y. So yeah, I've seen it, but very, very little, honestly. Hopefully that helps answer the question, but I'm happy to follow up if there's a follow up.
Thank you so much. And that brings me to another point, which is that Kenji's LinkedIn profile can actually also be found on his Zoom profile. So if you wanted to connect after the webinar, please go
Please do.
ahead.
Yeah.
And also anything that you want to forward on to me, I'll make sure Kenji gets that as well. So either of us will be in touch. So another question here is, what level of competitor analysis did you have to undertake before publishing? Sorry.
We actually didn't do much competitor analysis. I think because we did it so early, there were just maybe two other folks, including Rippling, that had made their metrics public. Um, but no, it's less about the competitors and more about how do you showcase your support team. Like, how do I paint a picture in one page of the value a new customer is going to get? So we didn't really think about the competitors, who will remain unnamed, but we didn't think about them while we were building our support page. We were just focused on how do we showcase our best work. And I think to our advantage, none of our competitors do this. So we're not competing with them on a transparent level, because they don't advertise or share their metrics, which is a really weird thing in support. Like, if you ask another support leader, we'll tell each other all day, like, oh, what's your response time? Like, that's this. But I think there's some weird barrier that we don't feel comfortable sharing with the world because we're afraid we're gonna, I don't know, do something marketing doesn't want. So I think that doing something like this when you know you have the company's buy-in is really comforting for me.
Thank you. And we have a question from Andre. Again, thank you, Andre, which says, seeing what other companies are doing now with their metrics, are you rethinking about what you need to show now?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the three that I chose, a year ago now, those are going to evolve. For me, it was, I talked about the perfect timing. I needed to get something down. So I still don't believe those are the perfect three. What I do plan on adding soon is more AI metrics. So, whether it's the deflection rate or like the quality of our AI responses so that customers also get to see that. Because right now it's all the human data. And I think that more and more teams are becoming hybrid or augmented. And I think I want to know that as a customer. I want to know like what is the quality of your chatbot. So if I change anything at all, I would keep the three I have today, but add a little, maybe one or two more on the actual chat and AI experience.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense. And we're still having questions coming in, and we also still have time for more. So, as I said earlier, please do send through as many as you can. This question's from Rose. She says, how do you decide which metrics to show if the priorities are different to your CX team, your leadership, and your customers?
This is the hardest part. You have to find that perfect triangle that the transparency works for all three. So number one, the whole goal is to build trust with customers, right? Who don't know your support team, or maybe it's validating the support you provide. But this is why you have to do the evangelism of the cross-functional working with other teams. The set that you go in with, like your perfect three, they're not going to be the same that you walk out the room with. So you just have to have alignment and be okay with knowing that those are going to change. But I would really be strong on, there's got to be one or two you're like, this is no, there's no way. This metric is absolutely important to my customers, important to me, and then be open to augmenting that with, metrics maybe the leadership team cares more about that would help close deals. But yeah, that's the lens I look through it. The whole point is build trust with customers, showcase your team. But ultimately, how do we drive value for our company and make support a competitive advantage? So just keep an open mind, be open to change. You're not going to walk out with the same set that you walked in with. So have backups.
Thank you. And we've got another question in the Q&A box, which says, this has been great. I agree. Can you please comment a little more on how you repositioned customer experience from a cost center to a value add? That's a great question.
Yeah, yeah. So it's still a work in progress. I'm not going to say it's completely done today. I think that one of the benefits I have is I have a CEO who really believes that. So Dan O'Connell in front truly believes this. But this is one of the ways that support can drive revenue. So like the example I gave of a potential customer going to your metrics page and then like, oh wow, that's great support. And if I really care about great support, maybe I'll consider them, and being able to trace that flow to a deal closed. Those are dollars that's going in the company's pocket that would not have if it weren't for your support team. And I think that's one of the hardest metrics. We could talk about this all day. It's like, I think that's the golden metric that every support or CX leader is looking for, is how do we translate what we do in our role to dollars in the company, because there's a lot of theoretical stuff of, oh, I helped a customer and then they try this feature, but this is something you can literally draw a line to and say they looked at this page, they started a demo, they talked to a sales rep brought up this report, they closed the deal. So that's one of the ways I'm changing the narrative for our team, is this is going in the green bucket of real value we're creating on top of everything we were doing before.
Awesome, thank you. And we've got another question from Anik as well, which is, what is the best way to share your metrics? Is it by email, social media, newsletters?
I would, yeah, that's a good question. I did all. So, uh, I pick the channel that works best for you. If your goal is to share this with your current customers, probably an email to your current customer base or a notification. If you want to showcase this to potential customers, work with your marketing team. You can do a campaign around this. We did a social campaign, so posting it on LinkedIn and things like that. So really figure out who your audience is. Like, who do you want to see these metrics? Is it, and then tailor your media to that. But I think you can't go wrong with email if you're thinking existing. And then for new, I think social, especially LinkedIn in our space, like I found that LinkedIn's kind of the watering hole for CX, and we tend to find each other there. We have our communities too. So there are communities like Slack communities online for CX and support. But I found LinkedIn to be the most useful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Thank you. And I can see that Luda has put in the chat that Front has them listed on their website. So if anyone wanted to go and
There you go.
take a look at the live page, then you can. Thank you for sharing, Luda.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely host it on your company's page so we can do that tracing it like we talked about.
yeah. So, Kenji, another question here is, do you believe the hype about Gen AI being a game changer for customer facing teams?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a game changer. I'm so excited for the next year. You know, you can do public metrics good and bad. You can do AI good and bad. So it's really how you approach it. But I don't think there's ever been a more exciting time for CX teams. It's not just hype. Like we're actually seeing the results, like the advancements in agentic AI, all of the different evolution of what we're using in our tools today, freeing up more time, for our team to create more content and work with customers and work on more high value transactions. Yeah, it's not hype. It's definitely real. It's here.
Thank you. I would quite agree. And we have another one as well asking, is Front just for customer support teams?
That's a good question. No, we definitely do ticketing and we do support. And I forgot to mention this, but hopefully it's obvious. Front uses Front, so my Front support team uses Front for support. But you can use Front for lots of use cases, and it actually works best when you have your whole company using it. So that's when the collaboration comes in. If at Front, every department is working on Front. I can loop them in. I can loop in the engineering team, and I think this is a big part of why I was able to do a lot of this work async, the collaborating. It wasn't just me getting in a room. I worked remote for a good portion of my week. So having a tool like this to bring all the teams together has been really powerful.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any other questions, and that's perfectly timed because we're just coming up to the end of the webinar. So I'd like to say, Kenji, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to everyone who submitted questions as well.